Hey guys, Jacob Dupre here. I performed that track you just heard with the Nord Stage 3 right here and a sample instrument that I created using the Nord Sample Editor. The Sample Editor is a very simple but powerful program that works seamlessly with Nord keyboards. I'm excited to show it to you and show you how it works. Let's check it out. First thing you need to do is go to Nord's website and download the Sample Editor software, which you can do here. You'll also need to update your Nord, the keyboard, to the latest OS so that it can connect with the Sample Editor software, which is also on the Nord website. Once you've got all the software downloaded and updated, then you'll take your USB cable and plug it in, and you'll see on the Sample Editor when it plugs in, it'll say connected to Nord. Once you've connected, you can manage the samples currently loaded onto your Nord and delete some of them if you need more free space. So if you look in the Sample Editor, one of the cool things that it does is it shows you here the size of the instrument that you're working on, so the sample instrument that you're creating, and it also shows you how much free space is on your Nord. So when I got this one, this was fresh out of the box, so it was full with all of the already factory loaded samples and presets. So I had to clear some space. So I went in here to Manager, and what you can do is you can see these are all the samples currently loaded onto the Nord, and you can select any of them and delete them if you need to make room. So you'll see how big it's getting, and also if you're getting close to running out of space on the keyboard. Now that you've done all that, you can start creating your instrument. Simply drag your audio files to add it to the instrument. Drag the zone boundaries to map each file to specific keys. So obviously I've already created an instrument that I used to perform that first track, but let me back up and actually drag in some new audio files and show you what that looks like. So I'll minimize here. I have this folder open that has all these samples that I use when I'm creating music that I use a lot. So all you need to do is take the file, in this case the WAV file, and just drag it over onto the keyboard, and there it is. Now, a quick note though, is that it's not on the Nord yet. You have to click Save and Transfer to Nord, then it will take a moment and it'll update the instrument. We'll do that once we mess with this a bit. So that sample, which is a clap sample that sounds like this, is now mapped to this boundary on the keyboard. Now, if I wanted to change the zone boundary, and you can see that actually when you first download it, this tool tip will be on. So this actually shows you how to use the editor as you're learning. So it'll give you different hints and what everything does. So here you can see that this is the zone boundary. So if I drag this here, now that sample will only be triggered by the notes in that range. And if you click Option and drag, you can change the boundary and it will separate it from the boundary that's next to it, from the zone that's next to it. So see if I do this and now I drag, now it's pulling the one next to it over. But if I click Option, I can separate them, which is what I'd rather do in this case. And you can set it to be as big as you want. You know, I can make the zone be a huge range if I want to. I can drag it all the way to be the top half of the keyboard. What I did for the track in the beginning that I played is where this split point is, which is where this green light is lighting up. This all was keyboard sounds. So I was using the piano engine and then the synth engine to do a brass sound. So I didn't have any samples up here. But if I wanted to, I could turn all 88 keys into a sample. All 88 keys could trigger a sample if I wanted it to. So after you do this, you know, you mess around with the samples you have, you pull them in, you drag them around, and you're ready to go, and you've created your sample instrument. All you have to do is go to Save and Transfer to Nord. It will save, it'll take a second. The more samples you have, the longer it will take, obviously. And there it is. So now that clap that I just added is here. Now this is another cool thing, getting into the options you have to tweak the sounds, right? So this is how you select different zones, by the way. So this is selecting each sample that I've let in. And as you could see from that song I played in the beginning, each key is something very different. So down here, that's my first sample, then I have, right, which are not mapped essentially to the pitch of the keyboard, but I can just trigger. Basically, I've turned each key into a trigger for a sample. Then I have that one there. So that's all the samples I have. And you'll see that some of them are pitched, right? So this sample, this one that I just added, this clap, is actually on this note here. So that's the actual pitch of the original sample. But if I play throughout that boundary, that range, it's actually going to pitch it down based on the range of the keyboard that I play, right? Or up if the range goes up from there. So this sound I have is like that. But if I want to, I can make that unpitched. And if I do unpitched and save it, what it'll do is every single note in that boundary will trigger the original sample. So it won't change the pitch of it at all. It'll just play the original recording of the sample. There are several more options for tweaking your sounds. You can loop the sound if you want to, and you can create a certain loop region. So I did that for this sound here, and all of these actually. And if I zoom in here, you can see that this is where the sound starts, and then the loop region is here. So if I didn't have it looped, it would just play for a certain amount of time and the sample would stop because it's a WAV file that's, only a few seconds long. But I wanted it to be more like an instrument that I would play, where if I played the sample, it would continue indefinitely. So by looping it, now I get this. So you hear that rotation going on, that's where I set the loop point. So here's an audition. If you want to hear your sound just in the sample editor, you can do that. And if you want to turn loop on, say, you wanted to loop this clap sound, you go to loop, and what it'll do is create a loop region that you can drag around like this to be on any part of the waveform you want. You can also change the phase of the loop. If you hear it repeating and it sounds a little bit too clunky or obvious, this might help smooth it out in some way. You can also do that with the crossfade, the X fade here, which will increase or decrease the fade time between the loop cycle. You can do a fade in, you can do a fade out, and change the time of that there. You can make it unpitched, like we talked about before. And then you can change the level of each sample to balance them with each other. So I had to do that in my clap sound because I just found that it really wasn't cutting over all the other stuff. So I boosted a little bit. I actually boosted it 4 dB. So that's just one example of when you might use that. You can also tune it. You can go up by 50 cents or you can go down by 50 cents. So if you want the sample to be higher or lower for some reason. And then really cool thing, which is so useful, is you can select all of the samples that you've added at the same time. And then even cooler is you can drag them wherever you want on the keyboard. The undo redo is also super useful for this because there's so many things that you can move and be like, oh no, I want that back. But the moving things is really great because at one point I wasn't sure if I liked the octave placement. So right now, I kind of had drums here, and so I have bass here, and then my synth chords down here, and then some effects down here. But I thought about maybe moving it all up an octave. So putting this here, putting the woo here, and moving it all up. So if I wanted to do that, all I have to do is select all, and see that bottom A flat, which is where the first sample is. I could bring it up there, and then I would click Save and Transfer to Nord, and that would move the whole instrument up. So that's a really awesome tool to have. There's a few more tools you can use. When you have the loop on, you can go to Loop up here, and you have Snap to Phase, which enables you to ensure the correct phase for the crossfade, to mix it together. And then you have the level envelope, which shows the level envelope of the sample with edits as played back. So you can select or deselect those as you like to. You can also enable dynamics. Now this is a really neat thing. I did not have it on for the sample that I created before, but I'll go ahead and turn it on and save the instrument. So what dynamics does is it's going to take the samples you've loaded in and interpret it like it would an actual instrument, like you would play on the keyboard, where if you play softly, it'll be soft, you play loud, it'll play loud. So basically it gives you a dynamic range. So now that dynamics are on, so see, I can get loud and soft based on the velocity that I play. But if I turn that off and resave the instrument, now what it's going to do is just play the sample in its original state, and I'll get no dynamics, which means no matter how soft or how hard I play it, it'll be the same volume. It literally is just playing back the recording of the sample. So it's almost done. Now it's done. So see whether I play hard or I barely touch it, plays the same sound. One other tool, which is conveniently located in Tools up here at the top, is Level, and it lets you normalize. You can normalize the whole instrument, or you can reset. There's also a handy feature in the Zoom section here, which allows you to view different parts of the audio file. So if you do audio file, it'll just snap you right to the whole file so you can see it in full view. If you do start and stop, it'll put the start and the stop right in front of you, fill the screen with that. If you do start, it'll just focus in on the very start of the sample, and if you do loop, it'll show you the loop region. So this would be really easy if you're wanting to edit certain parts of the file. It lets you snap to those sections really quickly. The last few things are naming the instrument, which you do here. You can set the category, so if it's a brass sound, or it's piano, or it's just a kind of a general rhythmic, percussive kind of sample instrument, you can name the category there. This is where you can import files. Of course, you can drag them in like we were doing before, but if you want to import them this way, you can. New, open, save as, very simple. That's just if you want to open a sample editor project, which here's this one that I've already saved there, that you would open up. And then save as is pretty self-explanatory. And then configure, this configuration right here is where you set your audio settings. So right now I have my Scarlett interface selected, but of course you could change that to whatever interface you have. I hope you enjoyed this video on the Nord Sample Editor and the Nord Stage 3. If you have any questions or any thoughts, please comment below, and thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Click here for more videos like these, or go to Sweetwater for all your music instrument and pro audio needs.